You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want: unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa.
Okay. We are live on the Pan-African Daily TV with our guest, our honorable guest for today. And I want to invite all of you that are joining the conversation to continue to share the conversations as we start. We have a very interesting guest in our studio today. He's a very young Pan-African from Nigeria of origin, and a very, you can put on, yes, it's okay. Thank you. And he's here to lecture us, to share his aspirations with us about why our identity matters. I mean, when he talks about our identity, we would suppose is the African identity, the Pan-African identity, or the cultural identity, whatever identity it is all about. You know, Mr. Ayo, very young, creative writer, author, educator, is a very celebrated a young Pan-African who is very vibrant on these topics as we speak. So I don't know whether he's been accompanied in the show today with another person. I see somebody in the backstage on my backstage. I don't know how. I have Tuala Montaigne. Is it a guest that you have on the show along here? But that's quite interesting. That's very okay. Um, I'm very happy. I'm very happy to have both guests with me live in the studio today. It's a wonderful pleasure, and I think we're going to have a very interesting conversation tonight. Um, Brother Iyo is here, Obiton Bara, and we have Sister Twyla Montaigne. Okay, and yeah. So I'll first of all bring Brother Iyo live on the stage, and so we see what's going to happen here. Greetings to you, my brother. Greetings. It's a pleasure to have you, and I think you can hear me audibly, and you can see me. Is it true?
Yes. Okay.
Wonderful. It's a pleasure, Iyo. I mean, we've been in communication since 2020. I know that. And you've been a very staunch Pan-Africanist and a follower of Pan-African Daily TV, even though, you know, we kind of like cut touch, but you never gave up. You always wrote and like, I need my voice to be heard on the Pan-African Daily today. And your fans are watching you. They're joining in their numbers as huge as they are. And I think, yeah, we're going to have a nice time tonight. And the topic for today is actually why our identity matters. Why our identity. Right. So I give it over to you. Normally at Pan-African Daily, we don't introduce our guests. So you tell us, you know, because it's a family kind of a conversation. Tell us who you are, what you've been doing, how Pan-African you are. You're a writer. I saw it in your biography. What books have you been writing? You're also an educator. So what sectors do you educate? I mean, a close up before we open up the conversation so that our guests can know you, because now once a guest on Pan-African Daily, you're already in our guest list. And so you're going to be doing a lot of conversations with us here. Okay. So over to you, my brother.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a privilege to be here on this platform to discuss issues that concerns us as African people. My name is, as you know, my name is Tamunokuro Iyo Vietnamara. Um, I'm from Nigeria, but an African. Yeah, I'm an educator, a writer, an African historian. Um, yeah, what basically what I've been doing is to use my platform to educate our people on the need to be proud of who they are, on the need to embrace their identity, on the need to see that as African people, um, we are great people. There is the narrative, the falsehood out there that there is something inferior about African people. It's not true. It's pure falsehood. Our ancestors, we as African people, we have done so much for the world. We've given civilizations, to nations across the world, and our contribution to the fund of human civilization is so enormous that if we know what we've done, if we know what we've contributed, then the current social narrative is going to change. And so there are people who are doing everything possible to deliberately, conceal our history as African people so that they can continue with the falsehood and continue with the false narratives out there. And what I do is to bring up this concealed, deliberately concealed history of Africa so that we as a people can understand who we are, where we are coming from, what we've done, the reason why we are where we are today as a continent, and the way out, how to pull ourselves out from our current situation. And I've written several articles. I've published uh, this book here, Rebirthing the African Consciousness. It's a book that I encourage every African to read. This is a message for every African, rebirthing the African consciousness. Enormous information is here, historical informations that will make, if you are an African that have been doubting your greatness, if you've been doubting what your ancestors have done, this book has information that will help change that narrative. So basically, my goal is to see how we as African people can be proud of who we are. Can stand because we have all it takes. We don't have to live in the shadows of anyone. We can stand shoulder to shoulder with anyone. So we just have to uh, be proud of ourselves, embrace ourselves, and just live.
Absolutely correct. I have to join you. I have a guest that is waiting. TLC. TLC, please, can you introduce yourself, ma'am?
Oh my goodness.
Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you.
Wonderful. We would like to hear from you. Just greet us, your audience, and tell us who you are. And yeah.
Well, I don't really know. Actually, my daughter sent me a link and I just pushed it and I'm on this show, but I am actually EO's mother in law.
Okay, okay. Wonderful. The link that was pushed to you is the guest link to the studio. That's why I just thought probably you accompanied him here. But it's a wonderful pleasure to have you. Yeah, to have you, and thank you for actually, like just a coincidence of two people in the back studio. I was expecting just you. Otherwise, I would have put your image on the card. Yes, my queen. Thank you for having you here. I mean, what can you say about EO and his activities and the stuff that he's been doing? And like, you're proud of your son, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, I'm extremely proud. I mean, he has an amazing book. My daughter's there with him in Nigeria. I live in the United States. So I have not visited Nigeria yet. I'm looking forward to it. But
Wonderful.
he's definitely for the people and doing whatever he can to uplift and motivate, um, and make people aware on what it is that they can do to better their situations and circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very proud,
Wow.
and he's an excellent dad and husband and sibling and son and father. So,
Wonderful, wonderful. Of course, I think you definitely would watch from the background, but like personally about you, where do you live? What do you do? Are you an activist? Are you an interpret? What actually? You're a sister, and I'm so happy to meet you because we have our other sisters here watching, and they definitely will be like, oh, yeah, who is this? Is she ready to join us, Sister Twyla?
um, well, actually, I'm a regional director with Total Life Changes. Um, so I just was on this to just hear what it is that my son-in-law had to say. I really wasn't in
Yes.
a position to speak myself. I just was on to listen and pay attention and see
Okay.
how I can help.
Wonderful. Yes, yes, no problem. But thank you actually for joining us live on the program because I just saw both of you in the back studio and I thought probably you were accompanying him on this program. If not, I have to take you out and I will ask EO to please connect. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Right. Of course, it was a very brilliant introduction that you made. And I'm wondering if people who want to get the book, where is the book available? Of course, we have a book club that is coming up and we already starting to put all the Pan-African books and authors and readings and presentations that is coming up. I just think the reason why I haven't actually officially launched it is because my own book is not yet out. But that's not
Right.
the truth. I'm just joking. Okay. Yes. So we have a Pan African book club that is coming up, and if you are a Pan African author or an African author that has written great works, stories, history, research, or you just have a research program going on about culture, identity, history, anything about Africa, we'll really be happy to have you on the show. I'm talking to the audience. And
Right.
today we're going to spend a very beautiful time out here. So you guys relax. I know that my audience is still warming up. Most of them are still connecting. I just want to give out a shout out to, yes, Marcia, and to Mr. Parker. Cheryl, of course, you're the first queen that is here to moderate. Thank you so very much. And I think Lilac also was here. Brother Ian, the king of Antigua, is also here. Marquis watching us from UK. Thank you so very much. Share the conversation on the link and invite one another to join. Let us listen to the voices from Nigeria, the Pan African voices, and new faces on the Pan African Daily who are actually going to be part of these conversations throughout. So I think I'll leave you to go on with your lectures, why you think the African identity actually matters, and why now. What is your past experiences? What are the narratives that you've been hearing about Africa that you actually think this is the right time that we Africans must unite and that our identity is our passport to every other thing that we
Sure.
do? Greetings, comrade Olivia. Okay, Oliva, sorry. Over to you.
Yeah. So there is something about uh, uh, cultural pride. Um, Cultural pride is really what every society needs to make progress. A society that doesn't have cultural pride is a society that is not ready to make any progress. Cultural pride is what propels societies into growth and advancement. Now, a society or a people that puts the cultures, history, language, and social values of others before their own cannot make progress. So if we as African people want to really make any progress, then the first thing for us to do is to understand that we need to be Africans at a mental level. Now, there is one thing to say you're an African. It was Kwame Nkrumah that said, "I'm an African not because I was born in Africa, but because Africa was born in me." That is the mindset. That is the mentality for us to have. So there is one thing to say, "Oh, I'm an African," uh, because you're born in Africa or because your parents are Africans. But there is another thing to be an African by having the African consciousness, being reborn inside you. And that is the reason why I came up with the title of my book, which is Rebirthing the African Consciousness. Because when you travel across the continent, you move from West Africa to East Africa, Central Africa, South Africa, North Africa. One thing that you will see is that our people are trying to be anything else other than being Africans. To a large extent, people are they want to be every other thing. I think it was the late African historian Rinoko Rashidi that said the problem with our people is that we have been conditioned to have this bias about being Africans. And so we reach to the stars and reclaim extraterrestrial roots. We call ourselves the Moors and the Nubians, and we even prefer to be toads in a toilet than to be Africans. I'm just paraphrasing the late ancestor Rinoko Rashidi. So when we have this issue of identity crisis, we cannot, in any way, shape, or form, build a society, because societies are first developed in the minds of the people. A society that wants to grow will first of all have what I call a reorientation of its people. Now, when we got independence, we suffered, slavery, colonization, and now we're suffering colonization. But when we, got what we refer to as our independence in the 60s, in the 50s and 60s and 70s, we, our leaders, did not really embark on a massive reorientation campaign, because there is one thing to take off the physical chains. It's another thing to take off the mental chains, because the mental chains are way more potent and way more effective than the physical chains. So even if you take away the physical chains and the mental chains are still there, you still have, excuse my language, a slave. And so if we when we got our independence in the 60s and 70s, if we had embarked on a massive reorientation campaign by changing the educational curriculum, by changing the social narratives that were there, by changing the perception of the people, and by instilling what I refer to as the African mindset in the people, maybe we would have had a different conversation today. Because what happened was that we lost our freedom immediately after we got it, because you know what happened to Kwame Nkrumah, to Thomas Sankara, to all this, to Patrice Lumumba, and the enemy did not just use force. Like, the enemy didn't just come directly to attack our people or to attack or take out our leaders. The enemy used our own people, to affect his campaign. And part of the reasons why he succeeded to a large extent was because the masses of our people at that point still somehow had this mindset that there was something superior about, the un-African identities out there. There was something that's superior about, for instance, the European, and it was much effective for us to, we a whole lot of our people saw the colonialists as their benefactors, as people that they were grateful to for giving them what they refer to as civilization, because our history was deliberately concealed, and most of our people did not know that we, over the centuries, that we have impacted the entire planet, that we have given civilization to the world. The so-called education that they say they came to give us is not actually true. When they say, take for instance, today people go to school and then they say, oh, schooling is Western education. Going to the university is Western education. And for a whole lot of Africans, this is still true, that university education is Western education. But that is not the case, because the first universities were built by Africans. Africans were going to universities. We had universities in Ouagadougou, in ancient Ghana. We had universities in Timbuktu, in Mali. We had universities across the continent. So how can we claim, or how can we even accept the narrative that university education is Western education when the first universities in Europe were built by African people? The first university in Europe, the first well-structured university in Europe, the University of Salamanca, was built by African people. The Africans, when civilizing in Europe, the Africans, when ruling in Europe, built the first university in Spain, known as the University of Salamanca. So how can that be that the education that we gave them is now what is referred to as Western education? So these are just some of the issues, and our history as a people, because it is so deliberately concealed and buried, it was very easy for the enemy to come in and sell his narratives and get acceptance. Get acceptance because we do not know where we're coming from. We've lost touch with our history. We've lost touch with our contributions to the world. We've lost touch to some of the achievements. We've lost touch. So when the enemy comes to say, I gave you civilization, or I, educated you, we tend to accept it. And because we've lost touch with who we are, their narratives are now accepted as the superior narrative. And as an African, you tell your brothers and sisters, you say, no, this is not how it's done. We had our own way. We've been doing this. We had well-established systems. What happens is that some of our people, think you don't know what you are talking about. But it's imperative. It's important that we embrace ourselves. We reclaim our identity. We take this campaign of reorientation seriously, because if the people are reoriented, if the people are educated, if the people know their history, it will be difficult for anyone to come and tell them that this is how it should be, because they will know that no, it can't be. They will say it can't be that way. We know we've been doing it this way. Let's take a look at a country that is very isolated in the world today. I mean, people have perceptions and opinions about North Korea, for instance. But one of the reasons why North Korea is going to stand for a very long time is because the government of that country has taken the campaign of public reorientation to a next level. So it's going to be very difficult for you to find people in that country that will work against their society, And if you don't have an enemy inside, the enemy outside can do very little harm. And so, as African people, for us to build the Africa that we desire, for us to build the Africa that we need, we must embark on serious public reorientation. Now, you look at what is happening in Burkina Faso today. Look at what is happening in Mali, and some of the countries, Niger, and some of the countries across the continent that are finally breaking free from years of political, economic, and social bondage. You see what is going on in these countries? They will succeed if there are no enemies within that will sabotage their efforts. They will succeed. And so if we want the progress we are currently witnessing in Burkina Faso and in Mali and across the continent, if we want this progress to continue, the governments of those countries have a responsibility in ensuring that they take public enlightenment to a new level, that they educate the people and enlighten the people on who the real enemy is. Because I can tell you, which you already know, that our enemy as a people our enemies are those countries that are like leeches on us, that are leeching on us, that cannot survive. They know that if they let go of us, that we are going to develop, we are going to achieve and get to our highest potentials, that we can challenge the status quo, we can challenge the current world order. They know it. And so these powerful countries, especially Europeans, have taken it upon themselves to ensure that we remain in perpetual servitude, we remain in perpetual subjugation, we remain perpetually enslaved and oppressed. Because it is through our enslavement and through our exploitation and through our misdirection as a people that they are able to maintain and sustain the current political and economic order of the world. So when we embrace ourselves as African people and we see the need for us to defend our continent, for us to be true to our identity, I am telling you that what's going to happen is that we're first of all going to have economic prosperity among ourselves. Now, take a look at it this way. I am in Nigeria. I cannot trade with my brother from Ghana or my brother from Togo or my brother from Benin Republic with my currency. We use the naira in Nigeria. For me to trade with someone, my own brother from Togo or Benin Republic that I share a border with, I need to use the dollar or the euro or the pounds. For me to go to Niger for any economic activity, my naira will not be accepted. The CFA in Niger will not be accepted in Nigeria, even though we share communities together. Even you can't even tell the borders. Like you go to some of these communities, you don't even know where you get into Niger without knowing that you're already in Niger. Like we share communities. You go from Ghana, you go into Togo, you don't even know you're in Togo because we share communities. But I cannot use the Ghana city in Togo. So for us as African people to trade, despite how close we are, we need the dollar, we need the pounds, we need the euro. And for every single time that we use these currencies to trade among ourselves, someone is smiling to the bank in New York, someone is smiling to the bank in London, someone is smiling to the bank in Paris. How long shall we continue on this trajectory that has brought nothing but pain and misery and conflict to us as African people? How long? And so it is incumbent on us, especially as the younger generation of African people, because again, our ancestors that fought for our liberation, we can excuse, we can make excuses that they did not really have examples to fall back on. They didn't really, they didn't have people before them, and so they, they fought for liberation, and things didn't really go as they had intended because they didn't really understand the nature of the enemy. On the other hand, we now have multiple examples. We know how the enemy operates. We know who the enemy is. We know that he has no new tricks. And so we cannot fail. Because when you look at the past and you look at how Congo was captured to this very day, Congo, the richest country in the world, is in the current situation it is right now. We know what happened. We can learn from what happened with Patrice Lumumba. We can learn from what happened, how we lost our independence. We can learn from what happened to Sylvanus Olympia. We can learn from what happened to our father that fought for the independence of Mozambique, Samora Michel. We know now that this is how the enemy operates. So we do not have any excuse to fail. But there are multiple examples for us to learn from. That's why as young people, we must take it upon ourselves to liberate this continent. Earlier today, I saw a video of thousands of African people, young Africans that were passing through the Sahara to get to Europe. They're passing through the Sahara, they want to go to like Libya, Algeria, and then cross over to Europe. And we see this. We see the young men, vibrant young men and women of this continent doing everything possible to leave this continent because they feel that there is no hope for them. They feel that the economic opportunities are not there. And so they are ready to take the death journey. How many Africans die every day? The Mediterranean has become a cemetery for Africans because every day hundreds of Africans, die on the Mediterranean while trying to cross over to Europe. The Sahara, is a vast cemetery for young African men and women. And how is it that we will allow this to continue? So we're going to do something to change it. And that is why I encourage young Africans like myself across the continent to get active in politics. We cannot be by the sidelines and just complain every day. We must go into politics. We must take our future by our hands. Because again, when you look at some of the leaders we have on the continent, many of them are puppets of Western imperialism. Many of them are sellouts of Western imperialism. Many of them help the enemy to enslave and exploit this continent. They don't care. They are part of the generation that still thinks that, we were done a favor by being colonized. Some of them are part of the generation that still think that colonization or slavery was the best thing that happened to us. because they don't know our history. I have spoken with some of these leaders, and I get shocked at, at the mindset. I get shocked by some of the things I hear them say. We cannot entrust our countries and our societies with men and women like that. And so, as young Africans, we must educate ourselves. We must know who we are. We must know our history. I tell you that we have a great history as African people. We've done so much for the world, especially for Europe, that all the pre and post so-called Socratic philosophers were educated by our ancestors. And this is not just something we are saying for saying sake. These are facts. These are historical facts. That our ancestors educated the likes of Socrates, the likes of Aristotle. Our ancestors educated the likes of Thales. That we as a people have done so much for the world that if we know who we are, we will not be in the condition we are in. And so it's important that we take the scales off our eyes and that we understand that the way we are is perfect. We need to just embrace ourselves. And this lack of self-awareness, this lack of knowing our identity, this lack of knowing who we are, is also part of the reason why our men and women bleach their skin. They bleach their skin because they're trying to look like, you know, they want to look European because they think there is something fundamentally wrong with who they are, with their skin color. And so they want to bleach to look. They want to have a lighter Eurocentric skin. Now, I don't have anything against light-skinned people. Nothing is wrong with that. Because as Africans, we have the African woman has what is known as the mitochondrial DNA. The African woman is the mitochondrial Eve, and as the mitochondrial Eve, the African woman can give birth to children of all colors. So you come to Africa, we are light-skinned and dark-skinned, and some of us are even albinos. And that is because of the mitochondrial DNA that the African woman possesses. No other woman in the world can do that. A white man and a white woman they come together. They can give birth to a child that is brown skinned. They can do that. When a Japanese marry a Japanese, they only give birth to children that just have one color. But if you come to Africa, in the same family, you have people that are light skinned and dark skin and brown skin, sometimes an albino. So we come in multiple colors, and that is because of the mitochondrial Eve that the African woman possesses. But I'm talking about skin bleaching because we feel that there is something wrong with who we are. Skin bleaching because we feel that we're not beautiful in this skin. That's why we want to take it off. And the reason why that happens is because we don't even know that our skin color is as a result of the amount of melanin that our pineal gland secretes. And so when we take off this, melanin is not only an energy. Melanin is not only a skin protector. Melanin does not just protect us from the ultraviolet rays of the sun. Melanin is also an energy receptor. It helps us to have it helps us to have increased brain function and intellect. If you I don't know if you've read my book, but there are detailed documentations there, where I talked about melanin from aborted black fetuses that are extracted. Because in the United States, they have what they call Planned Parenthood, and Planned Parenthood is one of the ways in which they harvest melanin from our people, because they encourage abortion, um, and the aborted fetuses, uh, they are literally mined. The fetuses are literally mined because they extract. This is well documented. They extract the melanin from the fetuses that they use in their aging cosmetic products. They even use some, not all. There are also documented cases of some pharmaceutical companies, using uh, these extracted melanin to produce drugs, melatonin drugs that people take to enable them to sleep better, to enable them have more energy, to enable them, have uh, have a better skin. Melanin harvesting is something that happens every single day. It is well documented, and so we have this in abundance. Like, this is nature's code. The reason why we are the way we are is because we've been coated. And so when you see our people bleach their skin, you know, you just go speechless, because you're wondering, like, do you even know what you're taking off? Do you know what you're bleaching off? Like, you bleach off melanin from your body. You are getting rid of it, and then you can get sunscreen afterwards to apply on yourself. Like, you take off melatonin and then go to the pharmacy to get sunscreen to put on yourself. So again, the reason why this is happening is because we do not know who we are as a people. We've lost touch of our identity, and therefore it is important that we as African people embrace our identity. We accept who we are as a people. We speak our languages. If you're from the continent, you must learn how to speak your language. And not just speak your language, you should also speak to your children. And also bear your African name. In 2024, why do we still give our children Eurocentric names in 2024? I remember years ago, I was in my early 20s, and I had started, I had read Stolen Legacy by George James. I came across the teachings uh, of Dr. Yusuf Ben Yakanam. I came across, the teachings of our leaders, and I was fired up. I was in my early 20s. And, I went to school, and the lecturer was talking about Africa, and he was saying things that were not factual. Now, the reason I was able to, I knew that he was saying unfactual things was because like I said, I've already started listening to, the likes of Dr. Henry Clark and Dr. Yusuf Ben Yakanam, and I was reading as a young African. I was expanding my mind, and I was discovering things that just got me so suspicious. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, really? Like, we gave civilization to the world? Is this, I was just so excited and shocked, and I was even doubting it. Is it really true that we did this as a people? Is it really true? You mean to tell me that my ancestors circumnavigated the planet before any other person did? So so I my lecturer was talking, and I sort of I said, no. What you're saying is not factual. Then I started, um, based on the teachings of Yusuf Ben Yochanan and the others, I was now telling my lecturer in school, what I consider to be the truth. Now, that got me in trouble, but it didn't stop there. I couldn't, in the life of me, continue with my English name. Now, my name is Obio Tomara. I used to go with George as a name. I used to go with George as a name. In the life of me, I couldn't continue bearing George as a name because I felt so disgusted, knowing who I am, knowing who we are, knowing what has happened to us, and for me to continue to hold on to such a name, I felt I couldn't. And so the first thing I did was to get rid of my English name. That was the first thing I did. I went to the court because I needed a court document to show that I was applying for a new name. So I went to the court, applied for the document, and now I was changing everything. I needed to change my bank accounts. I needed to change like all my documents. I wanted all my documents to bear my name. So I went to the bank, and I was at the customer care section because I've got to apply for a name change. I want my name to reflect on my bank account. So while I was still there, the bank manager, she came and she was just like, she was walking around, and then she asked me, like, she looked at the customer care rep, and then she asked her, what is this young man, what does he want? Like, why is he here? Why haven't you attended to him? And she said, oh, he wants to effect a name change. And so the bank manager then turned to me and said, you want to effect a name change? What happened to your name? Did you marry? Like, jokingly, because in Africa, it is when the woman marries that she can apply for a name change, because now she wants to bear her husband's name. So she not jokingly said, did you marry? You're a man. So why do you want to affect the name change? She wanted to find out. So I told her that I felt that it didn't make sense for me to continue bearing my so-called English name at that point. I needed to change it. And so she was curious. And so she asked further that, why do I really want to change my name? So I told her that, I felt that as African people, we should embrace our identity, because I haven't seen a Korean with an African name. I am yet to meet an Arab that goes with any African name. I am yet to meet a European that bears an African name. I am yet to meet a Japanese with an African name. I am yet to meet a Greek with an African name. How is it that we Africans are the only ones that bear Arabic names, Greek names, we bear German names, we bear all sorts of names? Why don't others also bear African names? And I said also that I am yet to meet a Russian with a Chinese name. I am yet to meet a Japanese with a Korean name. I am yet to also meet a Greek that goes with a Chinese name. When you look around the world, people hold on to their identity jealously. It is only we Africans that think that it's not a big deal for us to give our children on African names. But here is the irony of it all. In Nigeria, we have multiple nations, because Nigeria is not a nation, it is a state with multiple nations. So we have the Yorubas and the Igbos and the Hausas, the Ijaws, and so on and so forth. Now, I am yet to meet a Yoruba that goes with an Igbo name. I am also yet to meet an Igbo that goes with an Hausa name. I am yet to meet an Hausa with an Ijo or a Shekiri name. I am also yet to meet an Shekiri that goes with an Orobo name, or that goes with a Nupe or Igala name. Now, if among ourselves as Africans, we don't even bear our names, if I give birth to my child and I give my child, for instance, a Yoruba name, people will ask me like, why are you Yoruba? Why are you giving your child a Yoruba name? That's the question I'll be asked. But if we find it difficult to give our children fellow, the names of our brothers and sisters from other nations, why do we think it makes sense to go all the way to Europe to pick names for our children? Why do we think it makes sense to give our children English names or Greek names? Why do we think it makes sense to do that? And why is it that they do not give their own children our own names? Have you ever met an English person that goes with the name Kayode? Have you met a German that goes with the name Zayanda, or goes with any African name? You won't. There is none. So why do we do it? Because we think we're culturally inferior. That's just what it is. We think we're culturally inferior. Because if we say that it's religion, I know some will use the excuse of religion. Oh, you get baptized and then you're given a new name. Why? Your name is an identity. Your name is your identity. Someone who gives you a new name wants you to have a new identity. If there is no social or if there is no cultural imposition reasons, if there is no subtle reason to impose a new culture on us, why can't I bear, when I'm being baptized, why can't I maintain my name when I get baptized? Why do I have to have a new identity? Because except you're trying to pull me out from what I am. You want to give me something that I am not at the cultural level. And why would you want to do that? Except you have a sinister intention. And that intention is to make me have a conflicting personality. And so you go across the continent. What do you find? It's as if, as a people, we are suffering from a bipolar disorder. Even when we want to.
Okay.
Defy that marriage. We get married in the African traditional way. Now, for us to, yes. Are you back?
No, go ahead. No, I get you. I got you. I was just like, I thought you were freezing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So for us to codify our traditional marriage, we don't have to marry in a European way. It is like the European marriage is what gives substance to our traditional marriage, because we feel that our traditional marriage is not enough. How many other people do this in the world? Do we find Asians marry in their own Asian traditional way and then go ahead to marry in an African way to give credence to their marriage? So why do we do that? Why do we think that it is necessary as African people to have one to three, four marriages before we consider ourselves married? It's because, like I said, we have we have conflicting personalities. On one hand, we identify as Africans. On the other hand, you know, not so much, because we have ideas and narratives that conflict with what and who we are culturally. So these are the issues that we must look into. Now, I understand that things like language could be a barrier, and so we speak English. Uh, those things will need the greater collective effort of the society to change. But the things that you can change on an individual level, you should go ahead and change it. If once you come into this mindset, this new African mindset, or this what I refer to as the revolutionary consciousness, because you're revolting against an oppressive system. You're revolting against a system that wants to suppress your identity. So once you come into this revolutionary consciousness, the things that you can change on an individual level, you should change it while you hope and pray that and walk, because you don't just hope and pray, you also walk, that at a societal level we can collectively affect the needed change. So until then, at an individual level, change those things you can change. And that is the reason why I went ahead, to, for instance, renounce my English name, which I did proudly. And also, let me also add that, let me add that after I spoke with I told the bank manager my reason for changing my name, my reason for just having only my African names. She looked at me and she said, "Really? So, if that were to be the case, why are you putting on clothes? You should walk around naked. Because the same people whose name you don't want to bear gave you clothing." That's what she said. Why? I see a mobile phone in your hand. Why do you have a mobile phone? You should discard. Uh, you should discard the mobile phone that you have with you, because the same people whose name you don't want to bear gave you the mobile phone. I looked at her, and right there I understood. As a young man in my 20s, right there I understood why we are the way we are. First of all, I told her, we've been making clothes for thousands of years. The European did not come here to teach us how to wear clothes. We had our indigenous way of weaving clothes. We make our indigenous clothing. Maybe if you're talking about maybe suit and tie, that's not. But when you come to indigenous clothing, our ancestors have always dressed elegantly, and they've always put on gold on their bodies. So wherever that narrative is coming from, again, it's still that falsehood that we were a savage people until the European came and civilized us. That false narrative that is yet to be fully confronted. And so even though she's educated at a level where she's the bank manager, she just doesn't get it. That our ancestors were weaving clothes for thousands of years. That our ancestors were exporting clothes to Europe. That our ancestors even taught Europeans how to have their baths. Because Europeans used to think that having their daily bath was a diabolic practice. That is, to wake up in the morning and wash yourself. To wake up in the morning and have your bath. They thought it was a diabolic practice until the Africans told them otherwise. And even till date, a lot of them still find it difficult in having their bath. Till date, a lot of them still consider having bath a huge problem. They go a whole week without having their bath. Some of them have their bath maybe 3 to 4 times in a month. because they thought it was a diabolic practice. It was our ancestors who went to Europe, who built the first universities in Europe, who taught them how to put on undergarments, who taught them how to use perfumes, who taught them how to use soaps, that taught them that daily bath was okay. There was nothing diabolic about it. How can it now be that those same people that our ancestors educated are the ones who taught us how, quote unquote, to be civilized? And that was the reason why our ancestor Sheikh Anta Diop asked the question: this adventure of theirs, was it civilization or barbarism? Because we need to was it civilization or barbarism? Because when we look at it, it's very obvious that it was not civilization. And anyways, I also told that the mobile phone I was holding was invented by another black man like myself, Henry Sampson. Henry Sampson invented the mobile phone. He was a black man like myself. And when we talk about the digital cellular technology, we have to talk about our brother, Eugene Russell. Eugene Russell invented the digital cellular technology. So the entire smartphone infrastructure came from black people. Because without Eugene Russell, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. Because we need cellular technology for this conversation. He made it possible. And if not for the efforts of our brother that invented the fastest computer in the world, we will not have, computers that will communicate among themselves and have the social media infrastructure that we have today. So it is our people that have made these contributions. But the problem is that we are not telling our stories. And because we're not telling our stories, those who control the narrative take all the glory. And even for things that we, as African people, whether on the continent or in the diaspora, have invented, the glory goes to the current Eurocentric power structure.
Okay.
You take a look. You take a look at the United States, for instance, and our people in that country that have made enormous contribution to the technology of that country. They don't even get the credit they deserve. We use traffic light today across the world because an African American made it possible. Garrett Morgan invented the traffic light. And I can go on and on listing what we collectively as African people have contributed. We need to understand that we have made enormous contribution to the world. Our brains are not in any way inferior. These were the same brains that built the biggest civilizations the world had ever seen. These were the same brains that gave civilization to the planet. These were the same brains that circumnavigated the planet and gave civilization to the world. And the information of our ancestors are still infused in our DNA. They're infused in our collective akashic field that we can still access this information. It's not hidden, it's there. We just have to look. But we cannot see. We cannot see until we become proud of our identity. We cannot see until we embrace our identity. We cannot see until we say to ourselves, I am African. There is nothing inferior about me. I am African. There is nothing wrong with my identity. I embrace who I am. And it doesn't matter what anyone says. I will not change who I am. This is me. I embrace my cultures. I will speak my language. I will operate in how I was designed to operate. I will not operate in the shadow of anyone else. I will not measure myself with someone else's terms. I will not look at myself as an African through the lens of others. And until we do that, the current cultural, the current political, and the current economic situations that have held us down will continue. And so our people would think that
I think we need a break.
we don't have what it
Short
takes.
break.
Yes, we don't have what it takes to build civilizations. We do. We have what it takes to build civilizations because we've done it before, and we're going to do it again.
Yes. So we've been about 45 minutes in this conversation, and I want you to take a break. I see you sweating. Get something to drink, and we'll get back shortly after our anthem to continue on this very
Tuungane sote na tushereke pamoja ushindi kwa ukombozi wetu. Tujitoe wenyewe, tusimame pamoja kulinda uhuru na umoja wetu. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima.
Okay, so we are back, and I just want our brother to cool down a little bit and us to digest this, and I bring in some few other updates, and then we get back to the conversation. Like, I want to thank Cheryl and Enes that are actually Mr. Parker that are pushing up this narrative, and we want to remind ourselves that June 10th, our Freedom Day, is this week. We know that they've been celebrating it in other parts, but we just bring in your attention, and I'm actually reaching out to get a lecturer or a celebrant for the June 10th, this 2024. I know last year we missed out on it, but 2020 we did it, 2021 we did it, I think 2022 we also did it, and 2023 because of the mismatch we actually did not get on it. But this year, 2024, we're really going to do a series of lectures on Juneteenth and to keep our people always current on this Freedom Day and what happened and why we should celebrate, why we should put it in our calendar of Pan-African Daily TV and all Pan-African events. Juneteenth should actually be celebrated across the world by every African. Of course, because when we're talking about inventions, when we talk about celebrations, that's the only moment where we meet together, where we gather in a space and begin to teach ourselves. And yeah, you see, that's the future. That's Agenda 2063 right there. I want to actually give a shout out to Cheryl. Cheryl, you posted and you even put a small biography about that. And we'll be sharing that enough. We have enough time. We have enough energy. We have enough time to see them grow and know even the things that we're teaching them. So happy June 10th to all of you celebrants on the continent, in the diaspora. And please join us for this series of lectures, as we'll be bringing speakers from the diaspora and even the continent who have to do a study on it. I can even, Brother EO, you can do a study on June 10th, and then we'll be here. Happy to have you also this weekend or next week on it, because it's not just a one-day celebration, it's an annual celebration, and that's how we're going to be celebrating all our days. We usually did it 2020, 2021, 2022 on Pan-African Daily, and we're back to it. So that's the spirit, and we have to keep it up. So just getting back into our lectures, I want to remind us on something very pertinent, why Brother EO is actually focusing on this culture as our identity. But I want to refer it to what I call the blueprint, or what I call the new Bible for the Renaissance of Africa, in terms of education and even getting connected to your spirituality. I would always refer Agenda 2063. Now, let me just bring the paragraph and the essence why when topics come to this, we're going to use Agenda 2063 as a reference to get our people connected to this very blueprint. You understand? Because exactly what he is speaking is exactly what is going on and what has already been put down. So let's just see aspirations on where he is talking about culture and identity. We talked already about the aspirations of 2063. And if you look at it, aspiration 5, that's exactly what I also talked about last time when we just going on the introduction of the agenda. Now you see aspiration 5 is saying, an Africa with a strong cultural identity, an Africa with a common heritage, values, and ethics. Africa, as the cradle of human civilization, is a custodian of a cultural patrimony that has contributed enormously to human progress. African cultural identity, values, and ethics is as a critical factor in Africa's emergence on the global stage in the decade of the 2010s will be promoted and strengthened until 2063 when everything will be. So it's very important. All the lectures that we'll be doing here will actually still refer back. It's like a pastor or a preacher or our lecturers who come here and make a reference. Why do I bring this purposely on track? To understand why Brother Iyo and his generation think this is the right time to begin to embrace this agenda, but also to demystify the idea that our elders are just puppets, to also bring a kind of a clarity that maybe up to the absolutely renaissance of Africa is happening now, and even to them, they would have done it. They would have thought about it. And the third point, to justify Professor Baina's point when he said, we are barely 60 years, most countries 61 or 62 years in independence. And into our independence is just a baby steps for us to have had it. So I want, before I go back on the podium with Brother Iyo, I want to remind us that this generation, 2020, is the renaissance of the African. Now, what do we mean renaissance of the African? Everything that we're saying, reintegrating our cultural mindset. So let us say a political independence has been struggled for 60 years to kind of like balance up or impose the modern democracy onto the continent of the people. Now, after 60 years, after 61 years, the African, even the leadership, actually came to the opinion, this is not working. This is not the solution that is African driven, that is African centered. And so we have to come out with an agenda that would orientate our children. Now, I want to clarify this because yes, we do know that the leaders did make a mistake. They're still making mistakes. They're still getting a lot of struggles and challenges. But now a package like this, that is a book to guide us, an agenda, a roadmap, an imprint to say, yes, we missed it, but now we are orientating. We do realize when we met at the 50th anniversary of OAU to remind ourselves, but what were the values of our forefathers? And they came out with this Agenda 2063. I am a biggest promoter, just like for Africa, in the Agenda 2063, regardless whether it is the African Union agenda, but the aspirations is actually what we're talking about it. Like for instance, we never ever had to talk about cultural identity, like Brother Iyo is speaking. I never knew youths or in his category, in his age group, that would sit around and have conversations like this when they were not talking about their genes or talking about chasing women or talking about what kind of brands or what kind of cars they were. And when I was growing up in my teenage life, there were no discussions about identity. There were nothing about who we are or being conscious of, like, we were barely just consuming Europeanism until life. If you read my biography, in the first chapter is born and raised in two cultures in Africa. That's how every African child is born and raised on the continent, with two cultures, the Western culture and the African culture. In the African culture, you're not even raised into it because you're just born into it. But what actually they teach you and educate you on is the Eurocentric culture. So our identity, like Professor James said, is shackled. Our freedom is shackled to our identity. So I think we get it, and I think we must get it. And honestly, Pan African Daily TV, we have to start an academy for Agenda 2063. This is what would actually be the new, and like I said, we take it and run with it. It's like your father keep you an inheritance. You don't want to wait until and say, okay, I prepared this inheritance for you. Now you should be focusing on the inheritance. How do I want to take out that inheritance, the land that my father has bought and kept to me? That is what every African child that would study, or the parents would want to orientate their kids on how to manage that estate. When we grew up, our parents bought land, they built houses for us. And what they did was now to educate their children on how to come back and manage those lands. Okay, so Agenda 2063 is like a legacy that the leaders, the forefathers came together and reminded themselves of what they had planned or their ancestors had put together, and now they bring it back to us. It is upon us now to take it as a legacy and run with it. We don't expect the same fathers that have come to their senses and have said, oh, we misled it, or we were facing the political, trying to fight colonialism, trying to fight imperialism. Now we're fighting neocolonialism. All these stages in our life has just taken us 60 years to even realize that we were messing up. Now, what if we come back and correct it? If we did not have this agenda, honestly, we'll still be calling them puppets. We'll still be seeing them as they don't even have a direction. But of course, the Agenda 2063 is the new Bible, the renaissance of the cultural identity of the African, driven by Africans, centered around African values, around African cultures. We tackle it to when he said, and everything that brother is saying here is tied to exactly. I begin to wonder. I know he's a writer and author. He must have studied this agenda, because it is exactly what we're saying. Yeah, I see. Go back to it, chapter. Like if it was a Bible, we would say chapter 5. Okay, chapter 5, verse 1 of Agenda 2063 says the Africa that has this patrimony and the contribution of human progress. It's exactly what we're saying. All our inventions, everything that humanity brought to push all the civilizations, and the African renaissance of this identity is the only thing that will strengthen and promote Pan-Africanism in the Africa we want. Just like aspiration, talking about the integrated continent, politically united based on the ideals of Pan-Africanism and the vision of Africa's renaissance. How much more do we want? So I want to thank you. Like everything we're going to be talking about, all our speakers, all our lectures, all our all our guest speakers, we're going to actually really make reference to all their lectures on Agenda 2063, and you will see that we are the new generation to actually revolutionize and bring back the cultural identity of Africa. No one will do it. We have to do it. So thank you. I get back to you. I think you should wrap up in 10, 15, 20 minutes, and we'll be good to go. Thank you very much. Over to you, brother.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that for those who are wondering where to get the Agenda 2063, you could just Google it. If you just Google it, you will see it. And I think that we all should go through it and see how, on an individual level, we can begin to help bring these plans to fruition. Because an Africa that is prosperous, that is united, that is strong, is for our benefits collectively. And so we cannot just wait for the governments. On individual level, we have to do what we can. But
Yes.
in as I'm winding up, let me read something uh, from my book, Rebirthing the African Consciousness. Um,
Yes.
it is from our brother, Professor Kaba Kamene, uh, who said that um, Professor John Eric Clark often told us that the missing pages of world history is African history. And once you understand the role that Africa has played in the shaping of our intellectual world, in terms of the things that we have achieved as a people, you will begin to understand why there is a war on history. And when you're dealing with a war on history, you are doing more than that. What you have to do and understand and look at, you have to look at the works of Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop, the brilliant Senegalese writer who wrote the books, The African Origins, Myths or Realities, Civilizations or Barbarism, The Cultural Unity of Africa. As he developed this understanding, uh, he said that for a people to oppress another people, there are three things you have to take away from them. You take their history, you take their language, and you take their psychological factor. The psychological factors are what we call the VIPs, and Dr. Jeffrey Lennon calls them the values, the interests, and principles of a people. Take those from them. Take their history, take their language, and take their values, interests, and principles, and then superimpose your history, your interests, and your values and principles. And no matter what conclusion they come to and the challenges they face, they will always act in the interest of the oppressor that took their history, their language, and their values, interests, and principles. So we wonder why we wonder uh, why the choices we make never serve our best interest. We have to understand what's really at stake, and we need to change the paradigm. We need to study our history, we need to study our language, and we need to study our values, interests, and principles. Now, this is fundamental. It is fundamental for us to launch forth and build the new Africa, for us to really liberate our continent. Because I tell you this, Africa is not free. Let's not deceive ourselves. Neocolonialism is still at play, and it is holding us down. Yes, we've made some progress, and we're grateful for the progress we've made. But we are still in the positions where, to a large extent, they want us to be. As we're having this conversation, there is a war in Sudan. We know what's going on in Congo, that a beautiful, rich country that they would not just let go. It doesn't matter how many people they kill to get their coltan and their cobalt and their uranium and the gold. It doesn't matter how many people die. They don't care. And even across West Africa, in the Sahel, look at what's going on. We have all these terrorist groups that are being sponsored by some of these powerful countries as a way of destabilizing and undermining us. And so we are not free. And as young people of this continent, we have to understand the game that is being played on us. And we need to understand that the only way for our continent to continue to be exploited is for us not to know who we are and for us to be distracted from confronting the real issues. And so we must stay focused. and remind ourselves of the task at hand, of what needs to be done. We need to educate ourselves. Because if you are educated culturally, historically, if you really know who you are as an African, and you have embraced your identity at the mental level, and then you know what's at stake, you know where we are coming from, you know where we are now, and you know what's at stake, and you are able to rebirth this African consciousness I'm talking about. I'm telling you, if you gain political power, or if you are in a position to change the narrative for this continent, you will not betray the people. It'll be very difficult. So when we look at what is happening across the continent today, we have, you know, we have cases of massive public corruption, which is also part of the reason why things are the way they are. And so you have a situation where an African leader entrusted with helping to change the narrative goes into office and then takes the monies he's supposed to use in developing his own people, his own society, sends these monies over to Europe or to Asia and put in the banks, helping to boost their economies while our people are denying the very basic things of life. And sometimes these things happen because the people who go into these places, into these offices, or who get these positions, you know, to a large extent, don't really understand the war that we are fighting. What is really at stake? That even if you empower yourself and your society lacks what it needs, that you cannot enjoy your wealth. So it's important that we reborn and we rebirth this consciousness that I'm talking about. And that we understand that a whole lot of what they've said is not true. There are so many, and you know, as a roundup, let me say this. One of the reasons why, as a people, we do not really want to embrace our identity is also the notion that our ancestors were worshiping the devil until some people came here and introduced us to God. You know, and so when you talk about the need to embrace our identity, you tend to, you know, come across Africans who will say, what identity? The identity that is, you know, embedded in devil worship. So these are some of the issues. Well, here is the thing. If you study our cultures, you will realize that our ancestors were not worshiping any devil. As a matter of fact, in a typical African village, it is unheard of for someone to be a thief, or for someone to involve his or herself in some of these social vices that we now think is okay. So if we had laws against stealing, against murder, against all sorts of vices, how can you say that our ancestors were worshiping the devil? Didn't they say that the devil is who is responsible for all these vices? Except there are two devils. Except the devil our ancestors were worshiping, you know, had a moral code. And so this devil told our ancestors, no, you can't steal. No, you can't lie. No, you can't, you know, you can't deceive, or you can't take human life, or you can't, you know, except the devil that our ancestors were worshiping was a different devil from the devil they introduced us to. But if it is not, then it's all falsehood, because our cultures, our traditions, they forbid us from involving ourselves in vices that will bring pain, harm, or misery to ourselves or to others. So it is not true that we were worshiping the devil. It's not true at all. And so what they also did was that, yes, we have the concept of deities, and again, I will we have the concept of deities. Now, deities are not demons. Okay, deities are elemental forces. The elemental concepts. They are just energies that we personalize. And because I don't have enough time now, I can't go fully into it. But if you get this book, Rebirthing the African Consciousness, and then you go to the chapter 5 of the book, there's a whole chapter that explains African traditional religion and the concept of deities, and and what they really represent. So I'm sure because it's well explained in the book. So you will see what deities really are. These are not demons. You will see what deities really are. These are not demons. I understand that. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
You are. You're just freezing from your end, but everything's okay. I think everyone is hearing you. Yeah, just wrap up. Just wrap
Okay.
up. We have about 2 minutes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, it's imperative that we understand that we were not worshiping some devil. And yes, cultural practices are not static. So while I agree that as we progress in our evolution and our growth, that certain cultural practices may be looked into and remodified or discarded, we cannot discard our cultures as a people, or discard our languages or our traditions. So we must embrace who we are, and and see the importance of being proud of our identity, because our identity is what will propel us to the future. The pride in our cultures, the pride in our identity is what will propel us into having the future that we so desire.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think we're learning a lot. We've learned a lot. So if somebody wants to get the book, how are they gonna get it? Is
Oh,
it
you can,
on?
yeah, you can get it from Amazon. It's on Amazon, or maybe you reached out to me directly. But you can get it on Amazon. Amazon is the yeah.
Okay. Wow. Thank you so very much, Brother EO. We cannot thank you
Thank you for
enough,
having me.
and we cannot say it enough that the Africa we want is visible. We're not in any doubt anymore. We have your voices. We have. I just saw somebody wrote a comment there that you should put up a group of 51 of your type from different African countries. So if you have 51, say, I wish we could have 51 of you. So I think it will be really rather like even the book clubs or all the authors, Pan-African young artists, authors that we're putting together, we have to learn to sell our books by ourselves, because some of these platforms, you just begin to give them all the percentage. Anyways, but depends how much or how you get it. If the logistic is more easier, and we should be looking into getting an identity platform as well. Because, like Professor James said, culture is a word, identity is a word, but the products that follow these cultures, like brands, like where we get our books, these are cultural identities that matters a lot. You know. So thank you so very much. It will be a pleasure to have you again. Um, particularly on the topic of deities, African deities. I think we can have a conversation on that because that's also something that is causing a lot of miseducation. The issue of how Africans perceive religion and how they were brainwashed to look into it, not God, but religion and stuff like that is really crazy. And I think those are the kind of conversations in a very healthy and educative way for people who are interested. There's some people we will not take along to 2063. We have to be very certain about that. You know, like the Bible say, few are called, or so many are called,
Many are
but few
called,
are
few are chosen.
chosen. So it's going to be the chosen one, and you, I see in you that perspective of that kind of leadership. And we still also would like to have a conversation on your country, Nigeria, and how you see the future, the leadership in the place, the different types. How do you think we can bring the youth or the people together? I think that's your nation, and you'll be educating us on that. So thank you so very much. And
Thank you.
let's get going. So we wish you a good time, and we see us shortly
Thank you
again.
so
So
much.
you want to wrap up? You
Thank you.
just want to say bye to your audience?
Thank you for having me, and it has been it's been great being here. Uh, as you know, we wrap up the show again. I want to encourage all of us: be proud of who you are, know your history. Your ancestors, Africans, civilized the world. They did. It is not a myth; it's a reality. We civilized the world, and it's time for us to regain our consciousness and free the world as it is right now. It's waiting for us.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hakuna Matata. Yeah, thank you so very much. So good night. We see us. I mean, he's freezing. It's okay. All right, dear beloved family. Tomorrow we are going to get in touch with the mentors, the youth from the PLO Lumumba Foundation to find out the about the Pan African quiz and how it's evolving. But I just got a message which I was looking at here that I want. We initially scheduled the quarterfinals for 6th and 13th of July. I think we should go with that to give us more time to prepare. So the quarterfinals of the PLO Lumumba Foundation Mentorship Africa Quiz shall take place from the 6th and the 13th of July. So we have enough time to actually plan, they said, and to get into that. So, but tomorrow we are going to have the chairman and some mentees just sharing their perspective on the Africa we want. I think some country directors also. I still don't know how it's going to the lineup, so I will get more information and I give it to us. I'm just being a little bit distracted of what Peggy is saying. Yes, indeed, in Africa we go to our deities. In our indigenous African spirituality, we have polytheism, no monotheism. Yes, that's true. Yeah, that's so true. We go to the Creator through our deities. Yes, I think it's very important when we start getting into the cultural tools of teaching about what we mean by culture. Like I said, some people understand culture. We've actually understood culture in so many ways. But what are the cultural tools that gives us the identity? It's like how do we intercede with the creator of the universe and mankind, and how do Africans do it? That could be a topic and a teaching. And now we'll come into communicate into the knowledge of deities, how our ancestors perceive God, and how they use the deities to be an act of communication or getting in contact with the God or with God. Okay, so yes, these are very relevant teachings. And like I do totally agree, Cheryl, when you say our youth need mentorship. That we know, we already identified that since 2022 on Pan African Daily TV, and I think all of us are getting closer. The person that even moved a little further was when we looked at the structure of PLO Lumumba Foundation and came up to the idea that it would be better for us to actually get young people that we can start mentoring them and giving them a platform. Um, it's just a lot. It's a lot of work. We do know it, but the best thing is the work has started. I think most of the work is even done. What we need more is communication. How many of us knew about EO and his work and his engagement? Literally, maybe even his neighborhoods don't know him. So we're building the new Pan-African voices. Of course, they're orientating to their ancestors. They're orientating to their scholars. They're orientating to, you know, the past visionaries and the Pan-Africanists that we do know. That is their role models. And exactly that's where it begins. Once they have a role model, then they would easily fall in track with it. Because honestly speaking, if we don't play that role modeling, it's going to be difficult. Even if they teach and there's no practical lessons, they don't have models. But you see, on Pan African Daily and Pan African conversations and lectures and everything we do here, we have role models. Okay. If we take just African American history, oh my God, we haven't even touched that. Because when we talk about our ancient African history, we're going to see that even in the Caribbean and in Americas, you know, there's a history that was developed. And most often, I will still say it, even the Kwame Nkrumahs or the Thomas Sankaras were educated by Black scholars in the Americas because they're the ones that actually started to dig to know about their origins. When they looked at everything and the discrimination, and they start thinking, well, where do we come from? And so the original stories of Africa, I mean, if we really follow our lectures here, because 70% of Pan African Daily programs and lecturers are African American scholars or are diaspora scholars, because they've done so much work. Why did they do that work? Because they were already at the battlefield. That we can't say enough about that. Even most of the time when we talk about our siblings in the diaspora, only in terms of, oh, bring money and help the continent, or bring your skills back to the continent. Honestly, most often we don't even know their history. We don't know after 500 years that we separated from them, what happened, that they were kidnapped from us, what actually happened with them. We have no clue. We don't have any idea. Yet they're the ones that are embracing the root, regardless of all the stories or all the theories that their ancestors sold them or whoever sold who or whatever. Yet the siblings know, even if my father is a mad person, I'm a daughter of a mad person. So what can I do about it? There's nothing I have to do about it. That's my history. That's my father. And we have to fix it together. So I think we still have a lot. We have just a lot of things to do to give, to study the African American history, the diaspora's history in the Jamaica. We haven't even talked about, the Buffalo soldiers, in the Caribbeans. So when we have a lot, we have a lot of role models, we have a lot of information, we have a lot of materials. So I think researching is always just telling our people, just look for what is already given. Researching doesn't mean I want to disprove a theory, because everything is just there. Africa is the only place where people are still original, where people still pee on the street, on the tires, because there are no road toilets. Everything is just in the daylight. It's not even something that people still hide. Like, we're really still in the real senses. You go to Jamaica, it's the same thing. You go to any Caribbean island, it's the same people. Nothing has changed, whether the ones on the continent or the ones in the diaspora. And I think that is what we mean about a common identity, our common identity. I had Mr. Parker ask that question, I think, when we talked about, when we referred to the cultural identity on aspiration 5 of Agenda 2063. I think our common identity or our common values is whether an African in the diaspora or an African on the continent, we have a common history that binds us together. And that's why we must come together, understand, and we do it. We honestly, I just think the biggest thing, we will say it because I'm on it and we are all on it. It's a platform to listen to the awakened. And there are thousands and millions of Africans that get it right. But nobody's hearing them. And I keep saying, if you're one of them, just contact us on Pan African Daily. You can find us anywhere. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on TikTok. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on every social media platform that we are. Okay, that we are existing on. You can find us through my name. You can find us through any other, but you can ask anybody. But don't just make the mistake. Of course, Pan-Africanism and the theories of Pan-African and a lot of literature, a lot of concepts Africans are actually embracing. I mean, like I said, look at the social media space. It's just black. I mean, Africans are not just the ones that used to only sit and watch foreign. I don't even remember the last time or the last years, even my kids that will watch TV, that will watch conventional TV. To be honest, I don't remember. I cannot remember because I think it's more than 15 years that I stopped watching news. Honestly, and my boys, we grew up all together as a family, and my husband, we never, whenever, once we understood what all this game and mind games were all about, and particularly TVs that you watch every time and you never feel good. It has to always be something that would bring your energy down. It always, I've never watched TV and like, oh, except it's entertainment. And I don't really get entertainment by just watching. I'm part of entertainment. If it's about dancing, I go to where we dance, right? Because of maybe documentaries and stuff where you just want to, fall back or relax and just get your mind off work. So I think we are actually on the right path. Everything we're advocating, everything we're asking, it's already here. It has been here. Our ancestors never left anything. It is still here because they never went, they're still here. It is now that we're reconnecting in the time of the Renaissance, it's our delegation, it's our generation to do that. Like, this is my call. This is my own work from the ancestors. I don't know which one, whether it's Queen Zinga or Mama Harriet Tubman, which one that I am, but I know the millions and millions that are all connected to all of us. And you will see all of you here. Any person that happens to watch Pan African Daily or even is a part that will put their data on their internet bundles, like they call it on the continent, and sit here for 2 hours and watch Pan African Daily. Any person in the diaspora, as Novia is driving, but she is listening. And it's no coincidence. I cannot repeat it 1 million times that you are on this journey as the chosen one to play your own role. Even if it's just a comment, that's what you're brought to do. That's your journey. And so we should not be looking out too much like we need experts that have to. You're already the expert. We should not look too much like we need youth. The youths are there. They are there. They just need us. Now we're just navigating and almost getting to each other. We're almost getting close. We're closely there. Okay, you can imagine how long it has taken us. Centuries, thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years. But look at us today. I believe even if it was prophesied, like the latter days of prophets, they said it's gonna happen, but we never believed because we didn't even know who we are. So it's exactly the time. The balance is here. And thank you for those that just realized that I changed my name. That really just, this is it. It's been there until I was like, oh my God, I wish I could just, I don't want to say, yeah, just have, like, I just want to get a baby. Like, I just have to maybe do a last born and call her my heart. And I like, but she's already here. Everything that we're doing already is already here. So, or like Synovia putting her name Indigo and all that. It's just here. You don't need to actually go. And I really understood your comments. You don't need to go probably, oh my God, I have to put, just give me a minute. I have to connect the, if not the Barry is throwing us out right now. What happened? Oh my God. Okay, good, good. I'm so sorry. I mean, yeah, the connection was somehow, and we were almost thrown out. So everything we have is already here. The EOs are here. The Sankaras have been born in every nation, in the Gambias, in Burkina Fasos, in every format. Because we don't die. If we know our African spirituality, we just know we are coming back in different versions and extensions of ourselves. So you really cannot say Cheryl, you say, oh, I just know Cheryl. Your history, Cheryl, cannot start with being in Georgia or where you were born or on a plantation. I mean, the African stories of who you are now. I'm also discovering it as I write my biography. Like I said, I've cancelled a lot of pages each time because each time you're conscious, like formerly I would have started by, oh, my name is this, I'm born here, I'm age this, and my parents are this, and I went to this school. You know, that's how the biographies of every human, of nearly everybody. But a consciousness that we are into, when we will ask you, if you sit down and think about NS or Snovia or Benka, if you just sit and only think that, who am I? I don't think your story would say, I'm an African American woman that was born, from descendants of slaves. And nobody would start her biography in this century like that. All of us that are conscious. It's very simple that everybody would say, I'm the descendants of the first humans that existed. Okay, whether it's north, south, east, west. Anybody that is still going to write the biography, I'm born in Mississippi and my parents were this and this and that, that's no biography. You're not conscious. You just started with a modern circle of what defines you. It's like, it's difficult for me to just even call Cameroon because I know it's a modern name that never existed. Okay. But if I say this is a Bantu tribe, it's a Bantu nation, then I know what my identity is. I know what my culture is. If like I wrote in one space, just looking at growing up and feeling inferior because I grew up in the village and my parents farmers. But being conscious now and knowing my identity, do you know what that pride that I carry, just knowing that my parents were descendants of the Bantus that were original hunters and farmers and created all sort of solutions to be able to feed themselves and to feed the world. Until today, they're the ones that invented agriculture. You see the patterns on how when we become conscious and we talk about cultural identity, your language changes. To be honest with you, your vocabulary changes. Every other thing changes. The way you slay changes. You can do anything. You can carry all Western names. When your brain is right, everything is right. Okay? Because come to think about it, it's only one sentence that made me to say yes. Why do you think if they stole natural resources, they will not even steal your names? That we keep thinking they're the names just because you were born into it. It's definitely also stolen identity. It tells you that. Until I had to research to know that Susan is an Egyptian name, I never knew. So we have a lot of work to do than just basic physical things. Once your mind is correct, every other thing goes right with it. The way you see, the way you listen, the way you speak is totally different. And I think most of us, we know it, we've been there a couple of times. So yeah, like I said, yeah, and we saw it. Consciousness about the respect for one another and honestly what our descendants and our diasporas are bringing to us. I told you when we were growing up, our role models were African Americans, women, their beauty products, all the babies that we had on the baby powders, or even on the makeup or on the Vaseline, with beauty, cute brown babies, with their curly hairs. When we start putting curlies, it's because we saw it on the Eddie Murphys, on the Michael Jacksons. I mean, when the Big Brother sector, right? And everybody was role modeling them. But if you go to the French, also the French speaking African countries, their role models were white French people. But I think because of the language, and language is really important, no matter how we say it, the English that connected us, the English speaking African countries were actually oriented to African Americans and the Caribbean countries that were colonized by the French, and the African countries that were colonized by the French were also modeling each other, depending on your colonizers. You as the master, or they as the master, the cultures oriented. But what saved us most in the African English speaking countries, East African countries, were the African Americans. Honestly, we role modeled them, whether it was music or the way they dressed. And you see it even till today. Every makeup, beauty, fashion, Fenties, or whatever products is coming from the African American community, Africans on the continent are just using it. Okay, the model, if there's a new style or what, I don't know. I'm not really a beautician or stuff like that. They model them. Yeah, because of course they are actually moving into that generation, because we saw brown, and we saw brown, beautiful, cute. I mean, all our superstars that you can think. And come to think about when they wrote, they came together and wrote "We Are the World." Oh my God, that beautiful piece. So you can imagine how connected already we were. But the only thing is we were not conscious. We just enjoyed, we were just ignorantly, like in the Garden of Eden, and say, don't eat that fruit. When you eat it, you'll be wise. So don't get that knowledge of good and bad. And so that consciousness is really catching us now, and you begin to see how we are actually us. And we like, so there's nothing that we have to discover. There's nothing that we need to spend so much time on. What we need to spend time on is to bring them to the platforms, is to give everyone the voice to express themselves, to tell about the good stories that they're in. And every other thing would just disappear. Hunger would disappear, because we'll already just be conscious to know how to grow our own food. Most of our health challenges would disappear. Okay, because when you're conscious, you know even how to, to keep fit. You know what to eat, you know what to drink, you know when to sleep, you know how much sleep is important to you, you know how much your time is so valuable. Like, you have time until you don't even know what to do with it. That's how it is when you're conscious. You have so much time. Like, you use your time so beautifully that you don't have to run and drive yourself crazy 24/7 because you're chasing illusions. Because you're conscious, you use your time perfectly and you enjoy the rest of your life. So that's more about the identity that I envision, or you or us should see. Not just wearing a colored clothes or things that look like us. Of course, I wear my kinky like I can go crazy. And I'll tell you this story one day, because exactly where I got abused and marginalized was when I came to Germany, and I realized that, getting my kinky hair and bushy as it was a curse. You never would get a job. You cannot get into any educational or in a public office, or to serve or to do anything. And thank God today, I thank my ancestors that, thank God I wasn't given that. If I was given that, I would have been running like any other person, running on a 5 to 30 or a job staff. No, but because my ancestors has chosen me for another responsibility, so I would not be accepted in the normal circle that I was supposed to be. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with us. Something happened to us. I really just want to give a shout out to our Reverend Matthew Shock, who taught us this every day. She was teaching the same thing. He taught us the same thing. I don't know, he's busy now. He had to really do his thesis and had other projects. I'm telling you, but we can always go back to those lectures and we'll replay it when our studio is set. We must not have them present with us. Each person comes for a particular target and a particular time and a purpose, and when their mission is finished, they go. So some of the ancestors or the scholars, sorry, gone before us that we remember, there's the millions of them that we don't even remember their names because their own responsibility was gone. It's like our lecturers. Most of them, they're busy doing other things, but the things that they were meant to taught us, we have it. Everything that we're doing now is just self-repetition because we continuously remind ourselves. And the way our history, our connectivity is so sweet. Like we can remember, like we can sit every day here and talk about the same thing every day. Just the beauty of us connecting to each other. Just asking what we eat, what we drink, where we go, where we do this. It's enough. It's enough for us. It's fulfilling. And if somebody is interested and is inspired, okay, so they can take it along. So, people, I want to appreciate you. I want to thank you so much that we're all called on this journey and that we're sharing this space. We don't know how long it's going to take us. We don't know how long we're going to keep on this. We don't know how much time we still have to carry on our responsibilities. But I can guarantee you, every step, every minute, I enjoy it like the last minute. I mean, like every single second, it's so fulfilling. It's enough for everything that I don't want to miss to say I want to stay 100 years for that. Because like we give all everything to the fullest. And it comes back, I don't know, triple, triple, triple. That's why we're happy people. QQ is saying you're one of the role models for young generations, Dr. Tata. Thank you so very much. Thank you, QQ. I'm happy that we could be that. I'm happy that you're learning and that, even you forgiving our mistakes as well, because we're not that perfect. I don't know the kind of some crazy nonsense that I do sometimes too. I don't know. I cannot watch my back until you tell me. So yes, we are good. There is nothing with us but what happened to us. Very powerful ascension and awakening. Yes, nothing happened. Actually, really nothing. Nothing was wrong with us. Nothing ever went wrong with us. But something happened to us. And this is something that we keep thinking like, oh, really? This is what happened? This is what they thought we were? Oh my God. So yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Did I miss something that I should have brought to our attention? I think, Cheryl, you talked about something about debate, and I missed out on that, if I can pick on that. Sylvia, are you still driving? Did you get home safely? If not, please come home safely, okay? We love you. You have a lot of work still to do, have a lot to accomplish. So maybe Dr. Tata, they can give us a part TV debate that would be, who is supposed to give it to us, Cheryl? Who's going to give us a debate? Like we can, I propose a lot. Even those in leadership and those that are campaigning, I proposed to them. I told them we have a platform. We have a platform. Come and show how much you want to care for your people. We give you for free. We're not charging you anything. Conservative medias, you have to pay chunks of billions. We just come and prove to the African people how your politics and your visions would empower and change Africa for the African that we want. When we have this discussion, then we know you're for real. But if you shy away, hide behind all your keyboards and think you're just doing something, oh my God. Until Pan African Daily TV validates you, our audience, and then we know who you are. So thank you. Yes, Becca. Yeah, that's us. That's us. That's us. So I want to say good night, but we do our evening rituals. We open, we break, we close with our anthem. Like we say, June 10, these are things when we continuously do it. The African Union anthem or the African anthem or the Pan-African anthem now, it's only played once on May 24th at the African Union House where they all sat and they put their hands. I don't know what they do. and then they hold some conversation, and they make tea party, and they have a buffet, and that's all. So, like the Pan African Daily, the Agenda 2063, it's our duty to continue to promote it and to push it until it becomes, the music in our ears where we all go to bed and listen to it and enjoy it. So, once more, thank you. We'll see ourselves tomorrow. Peace and blessings. Love you all. And I know you love me too. Thank you.
Tuungane sote na tushereke pamoja ushindi kwa ukombozi wetu. Tujitoe wenyewe, tusimame pamoja kulinda uhuru na umoja wetu. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote, tuimbe pamoja, kuenzi shikamano hatima yetu. Tujitoe wenyewe kupambana pamoja, uhuru na umoja vitawale. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote na tujibidishe kutoa kilicho bora kwa Afrika, chimbuko la wanadamu, chemchemi ya utamaduni, tumaini letu wakati wa mafarakano. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima.
Thank you. Good night.